Welcome to the One Foot In podcast with Ohana and Winn. I am Alex Winn, joined by Eitan Ohana. Thanks for tuning in to our very first episode. Eitan, what do you got for him?
Well, I'm excited to talk with you, Alex, about all things college football. We got episodes for you coming every Tuesday and Friday, so make sure to stay tuned in, subscribe to the YouTube, follow the Spotify. Let's get right into it. The game of the week, or what was supposed to be the game of the week, I guess, Texas-Michigan. Texas kind of destroyed them. I mean,
Kind of destroyed them.
Super destroyed
them.
It really wasn't even close from the jump. And I don't know, I guess Michigan, it came in with a number 10 overall ranking, which is obviously heavily based on last year. And if you follow college football, which I'm sure all of you guys do, of course, they lost pretty much everything.
Texas beat them in every aspect of the game. I mean, you look at Ewers' stat line, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, they forced Michigan to turn the ball over 3 times, no turnovers for them. Like, every element of the game, Texas just looked amazing. Their defense was better. Their offense was better. Michigan could just not get it rolling. They were faster. They were stronger. They looked more composed. I mean, granted, Michigan's a brand new staff, a brand new team. They got a new quarterback system. They got Harbaugh in the NFL. But, I mean, I think it really is that Texas is just that good. Texas is that good.
I do think Texas is that good as well. And we'll get into it a bit later, I suppose, when we give you our college football playoff predictions. So I don't want to spoil anything just yet, but I'm with you on Texas being that good. Quinn Ewers, listen, I don't know if I love him as an NFL prospect.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens throughout the season and how that develops. But as a college quarterback, I think you can easily make the case that he's just about as good of a quarterback for any single program. Maybe he's not the most talented, but for any one program, he might just be the best quarterback in college football.
Definitely.
As Texas quarterback, he was highly efficient. He was calm. He pretty much dissected the Michigan defense, got whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Credit to Sark for putting those guys in position.
Yeah.
The D-line just completely dominated for Texas.
Dominated.
I mean, It looked like 2 completely different sports, 2 completely different sets of athletes, and I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Michigan fan base thought that they were going to win that game in the trenches. They thought that the defense was going to prevail. I mean, Ewers was slipping through. He was slipping in and out of the pocket. He was able to get downfield. They had a balanced offense. I mean, they just looked great. I mean, he's an older quarterback now. He's composed. I mean, Texas is real, and Michigan's not real.
Let's be real. No.
Michigan's not real.
Nothing close to real. Michigan's about as fake as you can get. If you expected them to be real, they're as fake as you can get.
That's true.
I know I didn't really expect. I don't think you expected them to be much of anything.
Go Blue! Shout out. But that was last year.
That was last year. Listen, you got your natty.
You got your natty. You might have cheated. A little bit.
Maybe a little bit of cheating. Yeah, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But
inspirational coach words from my little league coach.
There you go. But I mean, it's just not there. Davis Warren, their quarterback, he just hasn't really had it through 2 games, and I personally do not expect that to improve. I mean, he had a really rough day, 204 yards, threw a touchdown, but 2 interceptions. He just hasn't looked good, and I don't expect it to improve. Sherrone Moore, the head coach, one of the crazier moves I've ever seen a head coach make. Yeah. He's coaching without a contract. I personally would not have done that. Now, is Michigan kind of just telling him, we don't really want you here. You're kind of just our coach, and we're not going to give you a contract. And then when you don't really perform well, because half your roster left, we're going to lowball you. I don't really know what's happening. Sherrone Moore, though, should not have done that, obviously. That's kind of boneheaded.
Dude, they're going to pay him. I feel like they're going to find some labor laws if they don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I thought it was illegal. I did not think you could just work without a contract, but shout out to Sherrone Moore.
But, obviously, Texas did. I thought Texas was going to win that game, and I thought Texas was going to blow that game out. And one of the things that I kind of want to get into that we talked about here is, what is the gap between the best in college football and the tier below them? I mean, now you got a 12-team playoff. You're going to see more of those teams get into the playoff. Now there's going to be a bit more of that postseason push. But how big would you say that gap is right now?
So, without getting into the specifics of which teams I think are at the top of the gap, and I guess, I'll name a few. The Texas that we mentioned, Georgia, not a shocker to anyone. Ohio State has all the talent in the world.
And all the money.
And, they can just keep churning out receivers. So Jeremiah Smith, true freshman, just, Yeah. But I think there is a huge gap, and I think a lot of, and again, we'll get into this with our predictions, but I think the playoff itself yeah, it's going to be great to have 12 teams.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot of teams that wouldn't have made the playoffs otherwise, obviously. 8 more teams that wouldn't have made the playoffs. But I think as it develops and as we get through the rounds, it's going to start looking a lot like what the top 4 teams would be. And I think that's kind of natural. Maybe an upset or 2 throughout the way, but I don't really see anything insane happening. And I do think that gap is pretty substantial, as it always has been. Now there's just more room for other teams to make it into the dance.
Yeah, and I think with just conference realignment and the way that new structures are in these things, and the way that NIL obviously and donors are impacting programs, I mean, there's just only so much that teams can do when you're not a big organization like Ohio State, like Texas, like Georgia, like Alabama, who we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, historically, I mean, in the last couple of years, I mean, those teams have dominated. They've dominated. I mean, even Michigan, like we're ragging on them, but they're a big program, and last year that gap was huge. And when you look at some of these teams that might sneak in the later picks of those, spots of the college football playoff, it's like, what upsets are we going to see? Is there going to be any upsets? Which we will get to. We will get to.
But I think, obviously the money thing, there's always been a separation programs, and you'll always get a school every year that isn't one of those top. I mean, look at last year, Washington makes it to the Natty. That isn't the Alabama, Georgia, or whatever. Washington's a great school, and they've always had great tradition and a good program. And every once in a while, the stars align, and you kind of have the right set of quarterback, receiver, head coach. But the problem is for those programs, once those guys leave, maybe they transfer, they go to the draft. It's hard to recapture that immediately. There's always a little process, a little rebuild to get back to it. Whereas the top programs will always kind of be there. Now, Texas obviously hadn't been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And, every year was Texas back, and Texas was never back. Now, do I think Texas is back now? I do think Texas is back now. And I think maybe for them, it is kind of a signal that they're back to what they used to be.
Yeah.
But maybe Quinn Ewers leaves and Arch Manning isn't what he's thought to be, which I don't expect to be the case, but it's possible. And then they fall back again.
This is going to sound a little weird, but hear me out here. I think in college football nowadays, it is the easiest it's ever been to retain a dynasty, and it's simultaneously the hardest it is to create a dynasty.
Yeah.
When you look at Georgia with their three-peat, I mean, they have so much money, they have so much funding, they have so many resources, and they have such a big pull nowadays with Kirby Smart and that whole staff that they can continue to churn out great teams on both sides of the ball. 15, 20 years ago, you would have teams that would go on runs, but it was harder to keep that top
100%.
echelon for an extended period of time. And now if you're a team like, let's just say, for example, a Kansas State, right? You're an upper mid-tier program, but you probably don't have the resources to become a dynasty team when those dynasty teams can continue to be dynasty teams.
100%. And, sometimes the teams with those resources, specifically money, think of a Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you might look at a team like that or a school like that and you think, they have all that oil money from all their boosters. They should, realistically. If recruiting and on-field play was a one-to-one equation, then Texas A&M would have been amazing a few years ago with that recruiting class. But obviously it's not. So there is some element to you have to actually go on the field and perform. That's why schools like Georgia and Alabama for, the entire dynasty, they should get so much credit for what they are able to do on the field, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
All right. I think we're pretty much wrapped up our main talking point. Texas is legit. Michigan is not legit.
Nope.
Let's get into our rundown. So every week, first episode, we'll get this out of the way. Every week, we have a couple set topics. We have set time, and we're just going to run right through them, keep them quick, but keep them good. So let's go. What do you got first?
First off on the rundown, we want to talk about some freshman phenom quarterbacks.
Yep.
Specifically 3 guys. DJ Lagway, Dylan Raiola, and Nico I. You can pronounce the last name.
Nico Iamaleava.
Nico Iamaleava. By the 4th show, maybe no, actually forget that.
No.
By the second show.
Oh,
by the second
by
Friday. Yeah, we're upping the stakes all the way. By Friday, I'll have the name down perfect. If I mess up the name on Friday, I'll come in Tuesday wearing a Tennessee hat.
Oh man.
Maybe a Tennessee shirt. We'll see about that. We'll see about that.
All right, let's get right into it, though. Which one of those three, I think, impressed you the most, would you say?
Okay, so full disclosure, I was at in the swamp on Saturday.
I was
with DJ. Yeah, you were not, but that's okay. I was in the swamp for DJ Lagway's starting debut, and a lot of times people talk about, oh, you got to see it in person. I can't imagine, for example, anyone who watches the NFL that was in person at the Colts-Texans game on Sunday for Week 1 that saw Anthony Richardson make that basically 70 air yard throw with two guys in his face. I can't imagine seeing that live. It probably looked, exponentially better than it did on TV, and it looked super impressive on TV. So that's kind of where I'm getting at with Lagway. It was eye-popping in person. The ball it was unbelievable. I mean, the stats, 18 for 25, 456 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 456 yards, the UF freshman record, 9th all-time passing yardage. So it's pretty unreal.
It is, but they played the Samford Bulldogs. They played the Samford Bulldogs, and Raiola played the Colorado Buffaloes, and
which might not be that much better.
Which might not be that much better. But and Nico played NC State, which coming into that game was supposed to be a legit team that was supposed to be a defense that was going to lock him down. I like Lagway a lot. I think he's got the physicality is there, 100%. And I think he complements those speedy wideouts well. But Nico Iamaleava with Josh Heupel's offense, I mean, I think that's a guy that really is going to be. I mean, he's been QB1. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, but this is really his first crusade. Yeah. And I thought that he looked fantastic, and I think that he's legit, and I think that Tennessee is legit. Whereas Lagway in Florida, Lagway might be great, but does he have the defense to keep him off the field for long enough? Does he have the wideouts around him to keep him going?
Well, 100%. I think situationally they're both in very different spots. And I totally agree with you about Nico. I mean, 6'6", all the arm talent in the world. He's got everything you want, and as he develops, I think we're going to really see, by year 2, by year 3, it's going to be quite the sight, and I'm excited to see it for Nico. The last guy we didn't mention, Dylan Raiola, who didn't have a eye-popping statistical day with 23 or 30, 185 yards, 1 touchdown. Didn't really need to. Yeah. He kind of took care of Colorado pretty early, dominated them physically, so that wasn't a big deal.
Their run game is great, and I think he brings a balance to it. I think as time goes on, he'll improve a little bit on the passing, but I think he fits their system. Great.
Yeah, I mean, the arm talent is great. Obviously, can't talk about Dylan Raiola, I guess, at least for now. Not mentioning his, call it embarrassing, call it maybe overzealous.
Ridiculous.
Call it ridiculous, impersonation of Patrick Mahomes.
He's got to lose that.
But he does have to lose it. But listen, it's not a bad person to impersonate on the field. And he made one throw that you might call it a bad decision, or depending on how you look at it, you might be like, why did he throw that? That's a terrible decision that gets picked off. Or you look at it like, wow, that's insane arm talent to pull it off, kind of jumping and throwing it across his body. But yeah, I mean, all 3 guys, pretty awesome.
Excited to see what they do this season. All right, next segment we got here, Red Alert time. Oof. Red Alert time. Now, it's early in the season. We all like to do this. We like to see one team play great and get on their boat, and we like to see one team play bad and tell them that their boat is sinking. There's some of the names that we've got here, and we're not going to be able to touch on maybe all of them, but we've got Oregon, we've got Oklahoma, we've got Penn State, and we've got Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame speaks for itself.
Notre Dame, I don't even want to touch Notre Dame.
We don't need to talk about them. Nope, we're done. They're bad. They suck. Goodbye.
Yeah, come on. That's not a serious program to lose that game. But
Penn State, Bowling Green, 34-27, didn't look great. Defense didn't look great. Secondary didn't look great. And it's just Penn State. They are continually, in my opinion, overrated. Every season they start high, they don't perform in the games that they need to perform in, and then their season fizzles out into a mid-tier bowl game. And I don't think there's going to be much different this year. Let's talk about 2 teams though that have some big stakes here.
And I do want to start with a team that I thought very highly of, and maybe still do. We'll find out heading into the season, and that's the Oregon Ducks. I don't really know what the hell is going on with Oregon. You beat Boise State 37-34, which, might even be controversial because you had Noah Whittington returning a kickoff for 100 yards, and he's like, you know what I'm going to do? My favorite move any player ever does. Let me just drop it before the end zone. Love that one. And then, but listen, he got the touchdown, so it doesn't really matter.
That was not a touchdown.
That was not a touchdown.
Crazy.
He got away with it, though.
Was crazy.
So it's a touchdown on the stat line. You beat Idaho 24-14 week 1.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to root for Oregon. I love Oregon's brand. I love the uniforms. I always have. It's so much fun for me to root for Oregon. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, Dylan Gabriel to Evan Stewart is a good connection.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll say. I'm not worried yet.
Okay.
I'm not worried yet.
I agree with that.
I'm not sounding the red alarms yet, but they're going to need to figure it out. They're going to need to clean it up on defense.
100%.
Their offense, I think, will pick up. I think as Gabriel stays healthy, he's a
Yeah.
great quarterback, and his connection with Stewart is good, but the defense has got to pick it up. And they got to not turn the ball over sloppily. They got to be better with that.
Yep.
Now Oklahoma. Now, let me say something real quick.
Okay, all you.
Real quick.
Take over.
So last year I was in Norman, Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
I watched Dylan Gabriel play in an Oklahoma jersey against UCF. And anybody that knows what game I'm talking about knows that that was a real nail-biter for me. Oklahoma ended up pulling that game out. A lot of their defense returned this year.
Yeah.
They've got some highly touted defensive people, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman.
Yeah.
New quarterback in Jackson Arnold. And the first big game they played.
Jackson Arnold. I don't know about Jackson Arnold, and I do not. It hasn't looked great so far. I agree with pretty much. I mean, everything you're saying about Oklahoma. I thought it was pretty disastrous, I guess.
It was lackluster.
Is the word. Well, specifically the fact that they were outgained by Houston 318 to 249. 249, by the way. Their fewest yardage since 2022 against Texas, which you never want to put up your fewest yardage in a game against Houston, I would say, and escape 16-12.
They're gonna have to pick it up.
They'll have to pick it up if they want to make any noise, if they want to compete. They've got some teams on their schedule. If they want to make the playoffs, that will not cut it.
It won't cut it, and we'll talk about playoffs in a second.
Yeah, we will.
But I mean, you're an SEC team now. You cannot struggle 16-12 with Houston at home.
Mm-mm.
Again, early season, young quarterback. I mean, I don't think their defense looks good. They don't look bad. But again, I'm not sounding the red alarm yet.
Okay.
But I don't think that their ceiling in general is that high.
Okay.
I just don't.
Okay. I
All
agree
right.
with that. Now, this next team, we really don't need to spend that much time on. Colorado.
Coach Prime.
Sometimes you see a team. There's a great line in the show Succession. Obviously, you're not serious people. I love you, but you're not serious people. Colorado, I'm not going to say I love Colorado, but they're not a serious team.
No.
They're not really comprised of many serious people. They've got Travis Hunter, who's a tremendous talent. They've got Shedeur Sanders, who I do think is a good quarterback. I think there's a lot of overreaction on the negative side towards Shedeur Sanders, talent-wise, skill-wise. I don't think he's QB1 in the draft or anything, but I think for that program, he's probably their second best player right now. Jimmy Horn Jr. as well.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's the problem.
O-line, D-line.
It's just a hard stop right there, and you can't win without depth. I mean, nowadays there's just so much depth. These great teams just have so much depth. But really, I mean, I just think that the culture of Colorado is just bad. They're just in a bad spot. They won 4 games last season, so no one on their team. They just don't look good. They don't look motivated, and you got a couple guys that are out there really trying to give everything they have. And I'm not trying to knock the team too much. I just don't think they can compete. I just don't.
Nah. And, I don't really want to get too much into Colorado right now because I'm sure we'll discuss them moving forward and what the future looks like for that program. So, for now, we can leave it at that. Everyone saw the game against Nebraska. We talked about Dylan Raiola, obviously.
They were down 20-0 at halftime. I mean, it was bad.
It was bad. But let's move on to the final rundown topic. This will be a quick one. We just want to mention some standout performers, guys who we thought had, pretty good performances this weekend that we haven't talked about yet. Who do you got?
I loved watching Evan Stewart, Texas A&M transfer. So glad he got out there. He's with Oregon now. I think him and Gabriel's connection is going to be great this season. The Boise State running back looked phenomenal.
Yeah,
what was his name?
Gene T.
Yep, Gene T. He looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was also, again, Oregon didn't put up their best game. He's looking great. And then, I don't want to keep beating the bush here, but huge fan of Ewers and a huge fan of Nico Iamaleava.
You are a huge fan. I'll go quick here. I want to give I know we said Notre Dame, we don't need to talk about them, but we didn't say we're not going to talk about NIU. Shout out to Ontario Brown, who had 20 carries for 99 yards.
Woo.
And then get this, 2 receptions.
Woo.
Just 2. Ready? 126 yards and a touchdown. That's a stat line. That's
crazy.
63 yards a catch. Shout out to Ontario, not Antonio, but Ontario Brown. And shout out to Henry Parrish Jr. for Ole Miss. 14 carries, 165 yards, and a casual, calm little four touchdowns. Yeah. Something simple.
Him and
nothing
Dart are going to
crazy.
be a great backfield together.
And we will get to that. At least I will. In a second.
So here we go. This won't because this is the first episode. We want to lay out what our teams look like. This will be quick. You just rip it right away.
You want me to rip it? You want me to go 1 through 12 or 12 to 1?
Well, let's do this first. Let's say our first four. Let's say who we think's going to win each conference, and then we'll go from there.
Let's do that.
So who do you have winning the SEC?
All right, SEC, going 13-0. I've got the Texas Longhorns.
I've got the Texas Longhorns doing the exact same thing.
Number 1 seed?
Yeah, number 1 seed.
Okay, I love it.
Right.
2, we talked about them. We red alerted them. But my Big Ten champs, 12-1.
Ooh.
The Oregon Ducks. I think they lose to Ohio State regular season, but they get their revenge in the championship game. Ooh. And I think the Oregon Ducks secure that number 2 seed in the college football playoff.
Big Ten. I'm sticking with Ohio State.
Okay.
I think that their schedule allows them to get through the Big Ten pretty well, and I think that they're gonna win their conference. I think they're gonna win that championship game. Yeah, I mean, they still got a lot to prove, but I think that this is kind of a make or break year for Ryan Day. So I like them.
That is true. All right, I'll go 3 here. I got the ACC champs. Not a conference that I see being much competition this year.
No.
Another undefeated team. I'm going to go with Miami here, the Miami Hurricanes. They had a strong first showing against Florida. They looked good last week. I'm going to go with that.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
They look great. They're not going to lose a game. Their schedule's easy.
Yeah. 4 Big 12 champs, 12-1, so not undefeated. I'm going with the Utah Utes.
Got the Utah Utes as well. We are way more aligned than I thought we were going to be.
Yeah, we are.
We have no idea what the other.
We don't know what the other one is saying.
And I think now is where it's going to start to get interesting.
Now it should get different. So let me rip my 5. Obviously, I had Oregon winning the Big Ten. Ohio State I have at 5, 12-1. They lose the Big Ten championship, but I do have them at 5.
My 5 seed is the Georgia Bulldogs. That's where I think they're going to come in. I don't really know how it's going to work out with them in Texas, or what the playoffs are going to look like, or what that championship game is going to look like. I don't even know. They may not even make the championship game. It might be Ole Miss, and then Georgia sneaks in there. We'll see about that. That's where I put Georgia right there. I put Georgia at 5.
Well, I've got Georgia up next at 6. I've got them going 11-2. I think they just lose to Texas outright twice, one regular season, one SEC championship game.
Number 6 for me is the Oregon Ducks. That's where I think Oregon's going to fall. I think Ohio State's going to get them pretty good, and I think that's going to have the committee knock them back a little bit. But I think that outside of that, I think the regular season is going to be pretty good, and I think by the end of it, as long as Gabriel stays healthy, I think that's a hard team to face, especially at home.
Oh, yeah. All right, 7, and I'm excited about this one. This is a team, a quarterback, a coach that I cannot wait to talk about this season. And I can't wait to talk about a bit more here. I'm going to go with the Ole Miss. 11-1. They lose to Georgia, but I do have them making it as a 7 seed.
So my 7 seed is an SEC team not named Ole Miss. Yeah. Mine is Missouri.
Okay.
And now you might at home be a little confused at Missouri.
Good.
When you look at the Missouri schedule,
it is not a challenge.
It is not that hard. And I think that they're going to escape a lot of games. I think that a lot of teams are... I think they're going to confuse a lot of teams. I think it's going to be a bit weird for teams, and I like Missouri there. Again, I don't think they're going to lose too much in the regular season.
I am pretty high on Missouri. I do have them going 9-3. I have them losing to Alabama, and I do think they dropped 2 in a row to Oklahoma and South Carolina. I think something happens, and those teams just get them. So I'm not all the way with them making it to the playoffs, but I do like that pick. I like that. I like the fact that you went there and chose them. At 8, a team that you don't believe in to make the playoffs. And I kind of don't believe in to make the playoffs all the way. When I was making my predictions, I was between them and Notre Dame.
Oh, man.
It's not Notre Dame. It's Penn State.
Penn State's not in my list. They're not doing it.
I figured Penn State's not on your list. I have them making it. It's a team I feel the least good about. But...
Well, you're just listen to my number 8 and hear how little good I feel about this team. I got USC.
Okay.
I got USC just because I think in the Big Ten, I think they're going to beat most of the Big Ten teams they play. I think their offensive style is different. I think Miller Moss is pretty good. But I don't love that because I just don't trust their consistency.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
And number 9, I've got a team that neither of us have mentioned so far. That's Alabama. 10-2. I think they lose to Georgia, and I think they lose to your guy Nico.
I think Alabama.
I don't know why I keep calling him your guy as if I don't like him, but I'm letting you have him. That's your guy.
I might need to get a Nico jersey.
You got to get a Nico jersey.
As long as we beat him, which we won't. By we, I mean the Florida Gators, who are awful. We're not Florida Gator fans, I promise. 9, I got Ole Miss. Alabama doesn't make my list.
Oh.
I think Alabama's going to have some weird games.
Season.
I think with that new staff, I think it's going to be weird.
They did have a weird one on Saturday,
They
but
did have a weird one on Saturday.
Did.
Defense looked horrible. And that stat line, do not look at the final score of that game. That is not how that game went. Watch a replay, and you will be shocked.
Fake stat line. 10. But 10. And I'm very excited about this team. You mentioned them one time this episode. That's Kansas State. Ooh. I think they go 11-2. I think they lose to Utah in the championship game, and they lose either to Arizona or Kansas. But I do think the record ends up being 11-2, and I think they sneak in at that 10 spot.
My 10 spot is a weird one.
Yeah.
It's also a Big 12 team. I got the Arizona Wildcats. I love T-Mac, their receiver.
Yeah.
And what is the quarterback's name? Fiafo?
Yeah.
Something like that. They look good. Their defense still needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but I think that they got a flashy offense that I think is going to be weird for a lot of teams, and I think explosive playmaking in modern college football is a huge factor. So I got Arizona sneaking in. Not too thrilled about it, but I think they're going to sneak in. I think they're going to find a way.
I like that. A little Big 12 Kansas State Arizona action.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's going to be a huge game. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
That's
a
huge
I
game.
have them possibly losing that game.
Well,
Either Arizona or
talk
Kansas.
about
We'll
that.
see. At 11, I have a team that you just very recently said you don't love having your playoff. That's USC. Yeah. And I love having USC in my playoff, actually. I think they go 10-2, but I think the real challenge in my eyes on their schedule and in terms of how their season would go would be LSU week 1, and they won that game. And I think from there, it's a lot more smooth sailing.
Yeah.
I have them losing to a combination, as it's written for me, as I wrote it down, a combination of Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame. Michigan looked terrible. Notre Dame looked terrible. Penn State, I don't even love having the playoffs, but I do. So realistically, they could also win any of those games pretty easily.
100%. My 11 seed is Nico Iamaleava and the Josh Heupel train. They're interesting to me. I mean, again, we've talked a lot about him. We've talked a lot about how he fits in with Heupel, but I mean, you look at their schedule. I mean, they pasted NC State. I think they're going to cause Oklahoma some problems. It's at Oklahoma, so that's interesting, but I really think that they could pull that game out. But then their SEC schedule is not that tough. They got Bama. Kentucky looked horrible. I mean, their big games are Bama, Oklahoma, and Georgia, and I think that they take at least one of those games.
Oh,
if not two.
I agree. I think they beat Oklahoma. I think they go 10-2. I think for me, Tennessee and Alabama was the toughest one. I have the same record. I do have Tennessee. I have Alabama beating Tennessee, actually. Yeah. So I think that's the decider there. But yeah, I could easily see Tennessee in, and I like that pick.
So now we got 12.
Now we got 12.
G5.
Yeah, this will be both of our group of 5 representative. Yeah. I have a team coming out of the AAC going 11-2, losing to Kansas State and Oklahoma. I like Tulane in this spot.
So my team is somebody who made me really happy this weekend.
Got a sneak peek.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at their schedule. I'm going to see what I think that they can do.
Wow.
And I think that Northern Illinois has the possibility to not lose a game this season. They play Buffalo, which I think they'll win, and then they have NC State later. Bowling Green will kind of cause them some problems, but outside of that, they beat number 5. They beat number 5 at Notre Dame. And so I think that that's kind of going to be enough to keep them there. That could be.
Oh, if they go undefeated and they have that Notre Dame win on their resume, yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think anyone would be opposed to Northern Illinois making the playoff, and I think that'll be one heck of a story and one heck of a way for the 12-team playoff to kind of kick off.
So, do we want to break down every game after that, or do we kind of want to just skip to the...
Let's just skip to our championship
predictions. Let's just do it.
Let's do it. You want me to go first, or you go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Now, I was building this, and I wasn't super happy with this.
Yeah.
I think Texas is in that championship game, and I think they play Ohio State.
Okay.
If I have Ohio State at my 2 seed and the team and the process that they have to get there, I think they're going to be able to pull it out with the squad that they have. So I think it's going to be Texas, Ohio State in the game, and I got the Longhorns. I got the Texas Longhorns winning it this season.
Okay, I'll go on mine. Now, when I was going round by round and figuring out my process, initially I was like, I think I'm going to have number 1 Texas, number 2 Oregon, and that'll be my matchup. But then, and I'll give this part away, I do have number 1 Texas making it to the national championship. But then I got it to round 2, and I had number 2 Oregon against number 7 Ole Miss. And the more I thought about it, the more I convinced myself I was already in love. I think I proposed at this point. I just need Ole Miss to say yes, and then we could go get married. Because I think Ole Miss makes it to the championship game. Now, unfortunately for Ole Miss, I've got Texas winning it all, so we're pretty aligned there. But Ole Miss, national championship game, I love that prediction. I'm sticking with it. I believe in it. Texas, Ole Miss, Texas wins it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I have Tennessee beating Oregon in my playoff.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
We both have Oregon losing an upset. That's my
So we'll see about them.
really only upset that, at least gambling odds-wise. I mean, I have number 6 Georgia beating number 3 Miami, but Georgia will be favored in that game.
Yep.
I have Ohio State beating number 4 Utah, but yeah, so we both have Oregon being the one upset.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up our first episode. Really excited to get this going. Please be sure to follow us on social medias, and definitely be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Spotify. That really helps us continue to grow this. But again, like we said earlier, we're going to have episodes coming out every Tuesday and Friday morning. Tuesdays will kind of be a bit of a look back, and Friday will be a bit more of a preview. But we're going to do this exactly how we do it. Main segment, rundown, final closing statement, and then we're going to have it out on our way.